Ciao and welcome to this new tutorial. Today I want to talk about house bassline. This is a big topic and it's very different from the video I've made about techno bassline, because the foundation of a techno bassline compared to the house bassline is very different. Techno basslines are pretty much all about rhythm and a lot less about the harmony. House bassline, as opposed, are much more on the harmony side and less on the rhythm. So this is not, of course, the only difference, but it's the bigger one. What you have just listened are three examples of different house basslines that you can use in your production. Pay also attention to the different kind of sound that I've used for the bassline. The first is made by this sound here, the second this, and the third one, which is the subby one, this. So basically the sound design concept around house bassline is to have a more rounded and gummy type of bass. Sometimes you want also this kind of FM-ish sounds. You can mix a lot. This is very handy when you want to build call and response. So maybe you can use a sound a little bit more subby and round and a sharp one. The second thing we want to take in account when we are writing house bassline is, of course, the harmonic content. In a techno situation, you would use most of the time Phrygian or Locrian or minor scale. In a house situation, you want to use different kind of scale. You can still use the minor scale, of course, but you can use also an harmonic minor, for instance, which gives us this Arabic flavor, and also the Dorian mode is a good option. I want to show you three kind of way to build a house bassline. So let's start with the first. This pattern is composed from the same sample, which is this one, but then I cut it up some pieces to build this background here, and this is the whole loop, and there's also a reverse. And you can hear the sample here that is going in the background. Now let's try to create a similar bass line. So I want to basically delete this two bass line here, and I want to use this sample to build my new bass line. As you just heard, this was a little more minimal bass line, but still it follows certain rules speaking of music theory and scales. If you don't know what I'm talking about with scales, Dorian mode and stuff like that, just check my new music theory for electronic musician guide, which is on Gumroad, and you can have a wide you on music theory and scales, chords, and stuff like that. But let's move on. For this bass line, I want to be a little bit more minimal, and I want to use the Dorian scale. So let's switch in chromatic mode, and the Dorian scale is a minor scale with the major 6. So we got this. So we have also the Dorian mode here, and the note we want to use is, of course, the major 6. So this note here. Let's try to find something. I want to basically play this bass line. So let's try something. Remember, we have to use this major 6. Something like that. Let's try, and we can stack up other pieces. Yes. Now we have our little bass line, which is clearly in Dorian mode because we have used a lot the major 6. And now we can resample this bass line. And we have our bass line. So thanks to the fact that this bass line is minimal and the sound also is very short, we can use different part of the sequence, maybe just chopped a little bit one piece and use to reverse and maybe lay underneath something to complete a little bit this bass line. So let's copy this to this, and most important thing, we have to delete all this stuff here. Cool. Now let's chop this one. So I want to pick only the first nice. I want to reverse. So now exchange this with this. Copy. So okay, let's delete this one and place the loop on the sequence. This is the original one. And we can use also on the reverse sample, reversed sample, we can not only use as it is, but in chromatic mode. So I want to sync it up so it doesn't shorten when we are reaching higher pitch in chromatic mode. And let's try to find something. I'm using the tonic, the major 6 and the minor 3rd, so it's clearly Dorian. Yeah, something like that. So let's record something. Yes. Now I want to use the original sample to make something underneath these two loop here. Which are kind of a call and response with the same sample. Now I want to use this, and let's maybe use the and I want to basically try to loop and make something that is moving. Let's try something like this. So yeah, it's basically completing the bass line. So this is only the first example, and it's raw. Of course, you can resample, and you have to resample these three samples in one single bass line and then start to treat. But I want just show you my perspective on writing something with a more harmonic content than usual. Now let's go to the second bass line, which is a classic bass line. And this came from basically the root of house music, becoming from the 70s dance music, and then the what was called the Italo disco, created by Giorgio Moroder. This is one of this classic bass line. And let's try to comprehend how it's composed, this bass line. Basically, you have to program every 16 notes. This is a longer sequence. They are 8 bar long. Because this way, you can have different chord and you can have longer chord progression. Which are usually not needed in techno music. I've used this sample here. Let's try to... This is the end result. And let's try to recreate this bass line here. Now, cool, we don't have any bass right now. So for this, I've used the minor scale. This is the progression is tonic, third, fourth, fifth, second, and the tonic again. It starts again. So basically, it's a very simple chord progression, but in house music, chord progression are simple. We don't see any key changes or borrowing stuff from other tonalities. This is a very classic progression. So let's start to write down. We have to write all these 16 notes. So let's start to record this bass line. I want to use different velocities for different steps, and every note lasts for 2 bars. So bar. Now I want to change the note, and I want to use a minor. Nice. So I want to go on 3rd degree. Now the 5th degree, the 4th degree, sorry. Nice. This is the basic stuff. Now we can start to change some of the notes in the sequence, and we can change the note to push or pull the rhythm. So we can use the rhythm and the harmony to make more interesting stuff. Maybe if we want to push something, let's try to this one, and let's try to on the 5th. Yes, we can continue to change something, maybe here. Here. Like this. Maybe let's try to change also this one here. inject some variation in the groove. We can also delete some notes if we want, maybe in some spot to have some different variation. I don't know, let's try like this. The concept here is simple. We have to, first of all, write down a chord progression, and this is easily doable with the help of the chromatic mode, so we can see which note we want to use. Then write down on the sequencer and mix a little bit up. On this sequence here, I've simply resampled the sequence and then applied some effects. One of those was the slicer to achieve this fake sidechain. But you can do the same thing here. Resample and inject some effects. Now, let's talk about the third bass line. This is really simple. It's made by using one subsample. Again, here the sound design of the sample is truly important. We need some specific sound of bass. And the trick here is to use the same trick we have used here, but to have some rhythm. So basically, this is only the same sample layered down differently into the sequencer. Now, this, okay, it's this one, so we have to mute this and try to make something. Again, here there's another harmonic trick you can do, and instead of using a minor or major scale, we can use, I switched to the pentatonic, but doesn't matter because it's the same if you are switching to other modes. The goal here is not to use the notes that make you comprehend that we are in minor or in a major scale. And basically we can use the tonic, the fourth, and the fifth, which by the way are the same for the major or the minor, because the note that tell us which scale is major or minor is the third. So basically we can build a bass line around this perfect notes, fourth and fifth, and leave space for using some major or some minor chord over this progression. So let's record something. Nice. We have our simple bass line. Now, if we pick this sample here, we can use a major and minor chord. So this is a C major. This gives us a lot of freedom when we are picking our chord progression. Basically, we can build a chord progression around this kind of bass line, because again, we are not using the third, so it's not minor or major, and what makes this chord progression minor or major will be the chords that you gonna use around. Basically, these were three of my options to build a house bass line inside the ESP. Of course, again, this kind of video is really only scratching the surface or on what you can do, and this requires a lot of time programming the bass line and trying different solution, trying different kind of bass lines. The sequencer of the ESP doesn't help in that regard on being fast, as opposed it slows a little bit down your work, but it is what it is. So if you need samples or services for your tracks, just check my Gumroad page. And as every time, I hope this video gives you some new ideas to work with and a new way to express yourself. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. Ciao!